Well, g'day. It's fantastic to be here at Cudahy Park in Mudgeeraba for something to talk about. And today we are gathering together on Kumameri land. And whenever we gather together, we like to acknowledge the Kumameri elders, past, present and emerging, pay our respects to them. It's really important to learn a little bit about the Indigenous history of our local area, and we're really hoping that you will find out a little bit more if you'd like to know. But today is about something to talk about, and there are three reasons why we host Friday nights in Mudgeeraba Village. And the first is economic. We're hoping that as you come into the village on a Friday night, you'll patronise one of our great restaurants, one of the pizza joints or takeaway restaurants, and enjoy a picnic in the park. The second reason is we love this idea of promoting culture and history in our local area. And so getting local musicians and learning a bit about the history of our local area, we feel makes our experience of living here richer. And that's the second reason. The third reason is social. We want to give you something to talk about. We want to get people together to gather and enjoy a meal together and give you something to talk about over dinner. So hopefully we'll do that today. We also want to start just by thanking our guests. I've got Colleen Hope here from the Mudgeeraba State Special School, who is a guest today. And then later on we'll have Fletcher Babb, who's also known as Cold Ghost. And he's a great emerging musician from the Gold Coast. In fact, a nominee for the Gold Coast Music Awards, and fantastic performer. I hope you really enjoy his music later on. This event wouldn't be possible without the Lions Club of Mudgeeraba. They are an amazing group of volunteers from our local community. It could not happen without them. This beautiful brown couch has been donated or lended to us by Bookness, a local bookshop. We also want to thank Lan Living from Living Events and his team for helping us host this event. But let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the show. Colleen,
Hi.
We're here today to talk a little bit about the history of the Mudgeeraba Special School, but I thought it would be cool just to start with a little bit of your history. So, back in the old days, what attracted you to teaching?
I began first of all with an interest in nursing because I started at high school with working with the Red Cross and supporting in the old Gold Coast Hospital, which was in the main street in Southport, which my grandfather actually brought all the rocks that were at the front of that, and worked in some nursing homes. But I soon worked out that maybe it wasn't about nursing and it was more about teaching. So I took on that career, and it was Mount Gravatt College of Advanced Education at first, before Griffith University. I had been accepted to Darling Downs, but then later got the Mount Gravatt offer, which was a real blessing. And so off I started on my career, which was awesome.
And did you start as a teacher in a mainstream school before you moved into special school?
Yes. I actually took on early childhood additional subjects because I was always passionate about little people, but I could teach from primary school in those days it was preschool to year 7. And so I began my first teaching posting that came in the mail was to Currumbin Valley State School, and I was overjoyed because it was preschool year 1, year 2 class that I had offered to me.
And what do you remember liking most about teaching little people?
Their curiosity, their absolute, if you help them to provide the right learning environment and connect with them relationally, then pearls and oysters go together. They just become so curious around exploring their world. I was never a black line master girl where you fill out the black line and colour it in. It was always about lots of boxes and sticky tape and mud patches, and away you would go.
Great. And so you're at Currumbin Valley State School and teaching, very little people, prep year 1, year 2. How did that transition into your time at Mudgeeraba Special School?
Well, we're now, not that we want to add up all my years, but
We can keep that a secret, Colleen.
Well, I don't mind sharing. So over 40 years of a lovely life. So half of it's now been special school, but the other half was really devoted to, first of all, early childhood. So I danced around the Gold Coast with that piece. And I'd had some time at Burleigh State School, up at Musgrave Hill, where I was teacher in charge. But then we had this brainwave to go to the Torres Strait.
Right.
And that brainwave really came about because a girlfriend that I'd met at Teachers College had knocked on my door and invited me to tea. So we'd been friends for a very, very long time. And so thought maybe an opportunity to go to the Torres Strait would be a great opportunity.
Wow. So what happened to the Torres Strait?
In the Torres Strait, I learned a lot about, and I loved your intro, about the power of community, the power of, you know, all levels of government working together, all government agencies working together, but most of all, you saw families working together. And we did 2 stints there, so we'd had 11 years together, all together there. But for Shane and I, having our second child who had a disability, and then working with the community about setting up programs for young people with complex needs, became a real moral purpose.
Right.
Because our kids there were always well loved, but you never saw them out in the community. So they loved seeing Sarah out in the community, and of course she was very, very fair. So I started working with the community about, well, how could we best support our young people? So again, working with my friend's husband was actually then mayor of the Shire Council, working with health, working with services that came from Cairns, and out of that became the Malawaz program.
Right.
And the Malawaz word, because we had traditional Sea language names for all the classes in our school, when I worked with the elders, and Auntie Flo and Uncle Ephraim, sadly some of them have passed now, but they said they will be the Malawaz children. Malu meaning ocean, sea or water. Oz is short in Torres Strait Creole for horse, and they will be the seahorse children. But the metaphor of the seahorse is so powerful that I even used it yesterday with a family, is that the seahorse, they said to me, the child is pure of heart. How beautiful is that to start with? But the seahorse has its skeleton on the outside of its body. So anytime a family is vulnerable enough to let other people into their life, whether their health, whether their education, natural supports, we will be the skeleton that keeps that young person and the family strong. The seahorse goes through very distinct parts of the ocean, so we'll advocate and watch them. Mum might give birth to the seahorse, but the father, or sometimes they'll talk about natural supports, will shadow that young person for the greatest success. I was so naive to not realise how powerful that metaphor was going to be in my life as a mother, but in my life as I transitioned from Thursday Island, thinking, well, if it's time for a next journey and a next school, where might we go? And that opportunity became coming home, because we had a house at Mudgeeraba. That Mudgeeraba Special became that opportunity.
So this idea of the seahorse evolves over 11 years in Thursday Island, where, you know, unique needs of the community, and now it's applied to the context here in Mudgeeraba that you used just yesterday with the family.
Yes, yes. I have seahorse. We call them totems, of course,
yes.
And it's Sarah's totem. But I have totems in my office, and it's very easy then to relate that to the village feel of Mudgeeraba.
Yeah.
And you know how this village wraps around our school, and I hope reciprocally how we support the community here. But it's very easy to weave that in, and I'd hate to say there's not many dry eyes when I have parent meetings, because I like to make sure they feel safe and they are supported.
Yeah, I think there's a feeling of community in the way that you have loved the families connected to the special school over so many years. And I want to come back to that idea of community a bit later, but what was Mudgeeraba Special School like when you first got here, and how was it different to Thursday Island?
There were similarities and there were differences, because obviously Thursday Island was a much bigger school in terms of enrolment numbers. So it was quite small when I first came, 79 students. I loved the idea that, because I grew up on the Gold Coast, so I went to Southport State School when it was in the main street of Southport, and I went to Southport High. So I knew Mudgeeraba State School before it had moved to Benogan. So it was really lovely that there were already a sense of families who had gone there as state school children.
Yes.
But of course, a lot of the facilities were still reflecting what primary school students needed, not necessarily what students with a disability needed. So, you know, the way it looks now compared to it did 21 years ago is very different, and it's wonderful to see how not just the state government but many organisations have helped us to transform the school.
And I wanted to touch on that. So 21 years is a long time for a school to change. Like, what are some practical things that you could describe that people might understand have been totally different than, you know, the turn of 2000 to 2023? What's schooling like? How has it changed in that time?
I think when I came, it was much more about care programs.
Right.
And I don't discount how important that was for our students. However, we've really come in line with being just like any other primary or secondary school in the state system, being very conscious of delivering the Australian curriculum, but also finding teacher pedagogies or teacher strategies that are going to be unique to our students, that are going to bring them success, but also supporting families with those strategies so that we wrap around them as well. So I think the greatest thing has been the delivery of the curriculum and meeting the needs of our students. And in the senior school, the work around the certificate course delivery and skill development, and just seeing, you know, young people, as we did the other night, graduating and holding real life, credible, accredited certificates that they've been able to master at their level, you know, is something uniquely special.
Yeah, I mean, some people who are watching might not know the sheer diversity of different abilities that students in your school have. Could you tell us a little bit about what sort of conditions and situations do these students come from? What do they have? How do we describe that for an everyday person?
Yeah. And I think the heart of the piece, if I begin first, because my career has taken me to early childhood, primary school students, to the Torres Straits, and now to Mudgeeraba Special School, at the heart of it is the Malawas stuff. At the heart of it is they're children first. They just happen to have some other needs. And of course, being a mum of a young lady that is non-verbal, has seizures, but I can tell you about the stuff she loves doing. She loves to dance wherever she is. She loves to hug you wherever she is. So whilst the system will say to enrol in a special school, we must have a complex disability. So on a cognitive score, we're presenting under 70 percentile. We may have other impairment areas, you know, such as autism or physical impairment or vision impairment, but the primary is we have a cognitive impairment. So there is a real continuum of student needs, from being very complex and medical fragile young people right up to young people that love to have a chat and love to, you know, tell you all about the stuff that they know. Or I think Sarah's a really great in the middle here. While Sarah might not have verbal language, she has an awful lot to say through using either voice output devices, Auslan, or picture symbols that can then, you know, be universal for a communication with anyone.
But it sounds like teaching a student in that context can be so diverse for the teaching cohort too. So how, you know, what's the kind of teacher-student ratio in your school, and is it different for each need?
We get a standard arrangement, and roughly it looks like one teacher aide to 6 students. But we have some more flexibility where there's some more staff that can be programmed to help with personal hygiene or mealtime management if we need gastronomy feeds. And the class design is about making sure we build success for all students when we're putting the classes together. If we put all young people that were in a wheelchair together, then that would mean they're not going to get out into the community, because you really need a lot of resources to be able to do that. Or if we were to put all the more capable young people together, then that's not giving them a chance to be leaders with other peers and celebrating their success. So a lot of design happens, but also there's so much flexibility in not locking young people or teaching staff into a certain category, if you like.
And so over 20 years, what are some of the things that you've delivered that have made the environment at the school supportive and inclusive for students and their families?
I'd like to think there's, so many, and I hope at the heart of it is just moral purpose to absolutely begin with, that children and their families and our staff matter. So the watermark for the school is invested, and we are aiming to be invested in students, their families, their staff, and our community for them. I think some of the greatest successes has been around, like the independent public school that gave us creativity to look at other ways of connecting with the community. So our alliance work with the partnership organisations, whether that be disability agencies or financial agencies, that everybody's working together and getting reciprocal benefit by being part of that alliance. We've most recently, with our work with GLASA, and GLASA's work is always about relationships being integral to the work we do. So we've just become the first GLASA quality school in the world in September last year, and to me that's just so important and so integral to society, because if we know ourselves and then we can manage who we are as being the best people we can be, then our relationships will continue to be quality, and then the pieces that we do with our students or with anyone in the community will also be quality. And it might be naive, but maybe we'll just have this most perfect world if we were all engaging in that space together.
Yeah, I find one of my favourite events to attend in the community is the Mudgeeraba Special School graduation each year. And it's special not just because there's only a small number of graduates each year and it's a small school, and there's obviously a real sense of family at this graduation, but it's the stories of often the parents or the family members that will pull me aside and tell me something special that happened about the school. Now, quite often those stories make me quite teary, and I wondered, is there a really memorable story you can tell me about a family that you don't have to disclose who they are, but tell us something like that? Is there something you can tell us that was really quite moving?
I think our last graduation is pretty conscious piece of a family. In most cases, a family has one young person that has attended the school, but at graduation for this year, one of the families who spoke, this is their second young person that has just graduated, and her children are both very different. The young people are very different. She just inspires me, having two young people with complex, one medical need, more conscious interaction needs with the other young person, but she just looks for the good, and she can celebrate the good. And to see her face when she jumped out of the muscle car with her young man from our school and one of her other daughters, and it was like it was her graduation as much as the young person's graduation. And to follow that experience, they've just been up to schoolies, and we did an experience up at Redlands at Kindleton Camp, and the email that she sent around, thank you so much for letting my young man, who does have very complex needs, have 2 nights away, 3 days, and he's engaged in rock climbing, kayaking, age-appropriate activities, that they'll be lifetime memories.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is such a lovely, warm feeling when you see that sort of outcome. You touched on something really lovely just there, like this idea of the Gold Coast Muscle Car Association are a partner with the special school. And community relationships have been central. Could you reflect on a few of those relationships that have been quite special to you?
Oh, there are so many, and it is certainly something that I learnt from the Torres Strait about, working together, but also learnt from my mother.
Right.
Open your mouth. If you're at the shopping centre, or if you're, at Remembrance Day like we were on Saturday, just talk to people, and out of that will be an opportunity to see what genuine networks we can do together. But you know, my friend down at Gentle Touch, Terry,
Yes.
you know, him and his family are just an amazing group of people, and you know, give us the license to help in the garden and help wash his amazing vehicles. But he's also helped us, sadly, with children that we've lost and nurtured their families. You know, Queensland Police, they trust us with their cars. You trust us to do work with you. There are just so many partners. Stephen over at Raba, who's just really got that community garden piece and farm happening. He's been nominated for an award for Volunteer Queensland this year, and you know, he's partnered with our name, Mudgeeraba, the showgrounds and the work that they do over there. You know, it was lovely that they reached out and said, would you help write a letter for us? We're trying to get a golf buggy. Like, no problem. Yeah, why can't we help each other to strengthen each other and, yeah, just build really nice, strong bonds like a spider web.
Yeah, I think it always seemed in the decade that I've been the council, there's always been such a richness to the Mudgeeraba Special School, not only being like the geographic heart of Mudgeeraba, it's right in the centre of town with these beautiful old buildings, but it's also this kind of symbolic heart as well, because we see, you know, classes walking through town, and there's clearly people with unique physical disabilities and intellectual disabilities but they also seem, there's just so much joy. How do you bring such joy into life?
Well, part of being a quality school is one of the indicators is it a joyful school? So it's so lovely you've actually used the word. And of our vision statement that I can't shake, and Robin Kirkley, the previous principal, you know, established that as happiness through achievement. But I think it's actually really important. I think the joy is so simple, because what's beautiful about our kids is it is the little things that make them smile or stop and look, or, you know, my Sarah will remind you there are stars in the sky and a moon that's going to come out. It's not the big fancy things that you need. And when you celebrate those little micro moments that our young people master, it's really easy for us to smile, but it's easy for them to smile about their own successes.
Yeah.
So it's not about a whole lot of incentives. They're just happy that they've mastered something new. And we can all learn from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Has there been a time, well, we talked about joy, but has there been a time that's been particularly sad? Reflect on a moment of disappointment or sadness that... Trying to immerse ourselves in all the emotions today, Colleen.
Yeah, well, in the 21 years I've been there, there's been 15 young people that have passed away, and fortunately not at school, but to be part of those journeys with families, and the most recent family was last term. It is the highs and lows of the experiences for our families. And I just hope that we have been part of wrapping around them and being that strong skeleton of the seahorse for them, that they know we do care. And it is very intimate for us, like you've lost a family member. And I actually saw a family that had been part of our school quite a few years ago, and the young man's mum has just been in hospital and sadly had a medical episode with a stroke. You know, I knew her, and just to see her and being able to extend that love, in a way she went and started talking about the school. So I think, yeah, it is like a family.
Yeah.
It's like a family.
And you know, we started this bit by talking about something that's quite sad, but we were even, you start thinking about how dealing with that sadness in a really emotionally deep way ends up being quite rewarding. What's been the most rewarding thing in your teaching career?
Making a difference in children's lives. And I know that that is just something that people say, but if we are serious about the Latin in locus parentis, what a great honour it is to be equal partner with a mum or a dad as a teacher, to be part of that intimate space with a child, and to help them master something new, I've loved every minute of it.
That's so good. That's so good. And I want to make sure we take this opportunity just to maybe inspire the next generation of Colleen Hopes. You know, of it. Clearly, you've served in teaching for, did you say 40 years?
Yeah, 41 years.
Goodness gracious! I'm not sure I should say that out loud. Yeah, there's obviously another generation of teachers coming through. What sort of advice would you offer to a new teacher, particularly one who's interested in working with children with disabilities? Is there something you wish you had been told at the start of your journey in that space?
I think we spend all this time in focusing in on the curriculum and focusing on the delivery, but I guess that's why I really valued the work of choice theory and Glass's work, because at the heart of it is really knowing your learner, really taking the time to get to know that child. And for students with disability, it's really honouring what the parents or family members or carers have done to support that child. So I think if we maintain not losing focus on the heart of teaching is knowing the young person, that will set them off to great stead. And we've got some amazing young people who've joined our profession, you know, right currently with us right now. And I just find them so inspirational that they smile every day and want to be there. And I think the other people that's been really unique to our school is a partnership with Bond University, and it's around the medical students. And we'd started that, which began like a Friday morning, and I used to walk them around, because when you'd go to the doctors, you used to get a little bit tired of telling your story and the ailments and everything. But we have them partnering with our school, and it's been 8 students, and as of next year it's going to be 13 students, I believe.
Wow.
But I think it's equally the same for them as it is the teachers, because them being part of our school now is trying to help them see what is the heart of their work when they move into their profession.
Yes.
So I think that's a universal thing. If we can, you know, a leadership framework is head, heart and hands, not necessarily in any order, but if the heart is there, we've got to have the thinking about what are the strategies we're going to use, but let's get down and do the work, our hands, let's get and do the work together and build success.
Wow. Look, I got to say, I know that you talked about your families being an inspiration and the students being an inspiration, but Colleen, I think you're an inspiration both to your school and your school community, but also to the broader community here in Mudgeeraba. Thank you so much for being a part of our interview today. What a pleasure.
Thank you.